Alright, hey guys, this is Taylor Masters. I'm going to go ahead and take you through my Peeps family tree. So obviously we're going to start off with me, Taylor Masters. I went and finished my undergrad in social studies education and language arts education at Georgia State in 2012. I grew up in Lilburn, Georgia from '01 to 2015. And I was actually in Sugar Hill, Georgia from kindergarten through 4th grade, and briefly in LJ, Georgia in 5th grade. I was born in 1989. Okay, on to my family. So we have first my mother. Her name is Amy Jones, and she lives in Jasper, Georgia. My mom and stepdad actually just moved there last May, and I have one other brother named Reese, who is actually named after my great-grandfather Clovis Reese Thrasher. I'll get more on that in a few minutes. Okay, so my mom, she was born in Atlanta, Georgia in 1968. Her racial heritage is white. She's lived in Georgia all her life. She participates in fostering dogs and actually is lucky enough to get to work from home, which I think is pretty cool. Okay, next we have my father, who graduated from North Clayton High School in 1987. He currently has his own limousine company and drives for Uber. He has 2 kids, including me, 1 daughter. Her name is Brooke, and she is 13. And my dad actually lives in Ackworth, Georgia with my stepmom and his daughter and my half-sister. He's lived in Ackworth since 2001. He moved there after marrying my stepmother, Shannon. He speaks English. Nothing too exciting as far as the heritage goes. We'll go up a little bit and we'll start with my mom's parents. Okay, so my grandfather is David Bush, and he actually passed away in 2017. But he grew up on a small farm in Illinois, and I believe it was Whiteside County, Illinois. And he eventually joined the military. He lived in Georgia for a while and eventually moved to Tennessee and started his own tire company. And he had that for about 20 years, and he was lucky enough to actually sell the tire company in '07 before the economy really took a turn for the worse. So got lucky on that. And then there is my grandmother. My grandmother and grandfather were divorced long time ago, before I was born. And they only ended up having 1 daughter, which was my mother. So my grandmother is Lynn Stevens, and she is currently alive. She's my only living grandmother at this point, or grandparent, I should say. She grew up in East Point, Georgia, and she lived in Georgia, not only in Georgia, but around Atlanta, basically all her life, except for when she moved to Long Island for a year. And after she retired from the Atlanta Federal Prison, she moved to LJ. And since retirement, she's actually a real estate agent for Metro Brokers, and she's somehow still going strong with that. We'll go down to my dad's parents now. Linda Masters was my grandmother on my dad's side. My dad knew she went to some type of all-women's college in the 60s, but he wasn't sure what it was called. She had 2 children, my dad and my uncle Craig. She passed away in 2014. She was also a real estate agent upon her retirement. Then there is my grandfather on my dad's side. He passed away when I was in 4th or 5th grade, maybe. I don't know. I was pretty young. But he actually was in the Air Force. He went to law school. He was an aircraft mechanic for 30 years with Delta. And so I guess I haven't mentioned the language spoken for a few people. Everyone at this point has spoken English and doesn't exactly have the most diverse heritage. A lot of people from the United States and actually Georgia. So anyway, my grandfather on my dad's side passed away, like I said, when I was pretty young, but that is him. I think he had a couple other brothers, but other than that, I don't really know too much about him. So we go back up to my great grandmother on my grandmother's side, Betty Thrasher. She actually had 4 kids and passed away in 2014. She grew up in Anniston, Alabama, and I'm not really sure how she ended up in Georgia, but she lived in Alpharetta, Roswell area all my life. And she was married to Clovis Thrasher Jr., who actually passed away in 1984, but he served in World War I. He was a civil engineer. He went to Georgia Tech. He actually helped build Lake Lanier, and he was from Alabama as well. So that was him. Fortunately, he passed away 20 years before my great grandmother did. We're going to go up top to Roland Bush and Norma Bush, my grandfather's parents. They had 6 kids together. They lived in Illinois. My great grandfather served in World War II. He passed away in 2007, as did my great grandmother. They both passed away in 2007. My great grandmother Bush did not work, and my great grandfather Bush, well, she did work, but she didn't really have an official job. My great grandfather ran a farm, and she helped out on the farm and raised the kids, which I'm sure was a lot, being there were 6 of them. Yikes. Okay, so we have, let's see, this is where things get a little bit fuzzy. I don't know much beyond names and a few minor details after this. So we had Edgar Watley. Apparently there were 5, including him, there were 5, I'm sorry, he had 5 kids, and they all worked in a bauxite mine. And I don't know anything about Ruth Watley. Moving down a little bit, we have George Masters and Minnie Jean Masters. All I was able to really find about them is that George passed away in 1942. But other than that, I don't really know much about them. Okay, so we can go back up. And let's see. So the 5th generation, I know even less about. The only person on this 5th generation that I actually met was Annie Duncan, and she passed away when I was 4. I do know that on my great grandmother's side of the family, her parents were actually Dutch and traveled from the Netherlands. So finally somebody that doesn't speak only English. Woo! So there was Anno and Rena, and I'm not even sure how to say their last name. I don't know anything about John Bush or Gertrude Bush. I was only able to find their name. Don't know anything about Julius Duncan or Clovis Thrasher Sr. or Mabel Thrasher. About the only thing I know about them and the 5th generation is John and Gertrude grew up in Illinois. Same with Anno and Rena after moving from the Netherlands. Annie and Julius grew up in Alabama, and Clovis and Mabel grew up in Alabama, Georgia too as well. But outside of that, I don't know that much. It's interesting to see going through this, especially the women not only didn't go to college as often going further back, but they also didn't even really have a job. Most of them were staying at home and looking after the kids. It's interesting to see how much society has shifted since then. But other than that, a very white Anglo family outside of the people that were Dutch in my family. But yeah, that's it. This is Taylor's family tree. See ya.